Coming up on UCF Nightly News, students are turning to non-prescribed drugs to get through exam week. We'll tell you one student's story who self-medicated to get better grades, as well as the dangers involved.
Plus, homelessness in the UCF community is more prevalent than you think. Coming up, we sat down with one student who overcame homelessness with help from resources offered here at UCF.
Nightly News starts now. Good afternoon and welcome to Nightly News. I'm Keith Hellebrand.
And I'm Denise Jefferson. Today is Friday, April 22nd, 2016. Exams are right around the corner, and some students are taking stimulants without a prescription to boost their grades.
That's right. We have reporter Mona Howe live outside the UCF library. Mona, can you tell us a little bit about the dangers involved in this type of self-medicating?
That's right, guys. There are plenty of dangers involved. Now, Adderall is one of the more popular stimulants that students take to stay focused at school. I sat down with one student who's taking Adderall without a prescription. Let's take a look.
This UCF student who asked not to be identified is cramming for a test. He's got his computer, his book, and his pill. The pill is a prescription drug called Adderall, prescribed to those with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He isn't prescribed the drug, but he says he takes it for a competitive edge.
For me, Adderall enhances my ability to retain information and focus on my tasks that I have to do with school and even things outside of school.
He also says Adderall makes tasks interesting.
Everything kind of saturates in your interest. You're interested in learning different things, but you're not scatterbrained.
Dr. James Schaus, an associate medical director at the UCF Health Services, says taking Adderall without a prescription is dangerous.
The students may not be aware of the difference between an Adderall 10 milligram and a 30 milligram. So they may take way more than is necessary and even get into dangerous dosing.
The UCF student says he knows taking Adderall without a prescription is dangerous, but he says for him, not taking it has bigger risks.
I think it's a little even more scary because I take it every day, and if I were to go off of it for one day, I would be extremely incompetent.
Adderall can be addictive. It can cause a rise in blood pressure and even psychiatric symptoms, but that isn't changing the student's mind. He says he will continue to use the drug since he's yet to experience the side effects. Reporting from Orlando, Mona Howe, UCF Nightly News.
A recent study shows that college students were twice as likely to abuse Adderall compared to other demographics. Hopefully, students think twice about the dangers involved before taking the drug. Back to you, Keith and Dernisa.
Thanks, Mona. Just last month, Governor Rick Scott approved the controversial medical marijuana bill.
Our reporter Nydia Diaz is live at Knox Nursery, one of the 5 nurseries that will supply Florida with medical marijuana.
Well, guys, this nursery here in Winter Garden will be the only nursery to cultivate and distribute legal marijuana in our central region. I actually sat down with one person who says she's already benefiting from the medical marijuana. Adriana Tejada is living with a tumor growing in her brainstem that doctors say can lead to irreversible damages.
They said that if it got any larger, it could affect my sight, causing me to go blind. They also said that currently I can't get pregnant because of the tumor.
She says it's tough and scary living with this disease.
It's depressing, it's frustrating, and I mean, knowing you can die really at any point is a little frustrating too.
Tejada takes medicine in hopes of shrinking her tumor, but feels it's the medical marijuana helping her with the pain and suffering.
It just really upset me to be going through all those things and not be able to do anything about it. So the marijuana, it just kind of like gave me a different perspective.
That's why she's glad Governor Rick Scott added medical cannabis for more patients, such as the terminally ill. For Jason Perazzolo, a licensed physician, he says this medication will lead to more research.
I think there's a lot of hope in the sense that there's going to be more research done on this, and we're going to be able to find better uses, more uses for medical marijuana.
As for Tejada, she won't let this condition hold her back anymore.
Laying in bed isn't living your life. Feeling sad for yourself isn't your life. But going out there, having fun, experiencing the world, that's a life, even if it's short.
Tejada hopes one day she can have the family she's always wanted. Reporting from Orlando, Nydia Diaz, UCF Nightly News. By June of next year, the 5 nurseries will begin the sale of medicinal marijuana to patients with permission from a qualified doctor. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Nydia. Alcohol and substance abuse can be a major problem on college campuses, but at UCF, a new community is helping students find a solution. The Center for the Study of Addiction and Recovery estimates that 1 in 66 college students is either in recovery or looking for recovery resources. The collegiate recovery community is making it easier for those students to connect. Outreach Director Teresa Michelson explains how making connections is important.
To have somebody to kind of talk to about what the struggles might be, the day-to-day struggles, could be really helpful and supportive to somebody who's really kind of going through the process of recovery.
The collegiate recovery community points students to resources and social opportunities on campus, including academic coaching and a treatment clinic.
While some students are struggling to maintain their grades, others are struggling to maintain a home.
That's right, Keith. I actually sat down with a student who experienced homelessness firsthand. Let's take a look.
They sleep in cars, camp in woods, and seek shelter in campus buildings, but they all are trying to improve their lives through higher education. Homeless students at UCF face what some call the invisible struggle, because they can blend in with everyone else while desperately needing extra help. Former UCF student Berkeley McDowell faced this struggle without financial help, but with the loving words of his grandmother.
My entire family didn't know I was homeless the entire time because they live up there in New York. But due to that entire transition, she kind of helped guide me without the knowledge of me knowing that I was living like that.
UCF Student Care Services provides resources like bus passes, meal plans, and even tuition waivers for students in need. Homeless Student Resource Liaison Todd Curry explains why students should reach out.
I wouldn't want students to get lost because they felt uncomfortable asking for help.
Here at the Knights Pantry, students have access to resources such as food, clothing, and toiletries. All they have to do is come inside, swipe their ID, and these items are provided to them at no cost. Even with resources like Knights Pantry and Student Care Services, some students are still afraid to ask for the help they need. McDowell offers some words of advice for these students.
Don't be afraid, just do what you got to do to make yourself in a better living situation.
For homeless students at UCF, the help they need is available. All they have to do is ask. In Orlando, Denisa Jefferson, UCF Nightly News.
Students facing homelessness can access various resources by visiting the Student Care Services office in Farrell Commons.
A recent study done by the Multi-Service Eating Disorder Association shows that 40% of female college students have eating disorders. Nightly News reporter Mona Howe met with a student who shared with us her challenges in recovering from this disease.
UCF student Logan Graves has been battling an eating disorder for 10 years. To stay in control of her body and mind, she fights, literally, for her life. The 22-year-old recovering bulimic says boxing is what keeps her confident and positive.
It's my opportunity to use something that I'm good at in a place that makes me feel comfortable.
At 5, Graves was a happy and healthy child. It wasn't until 5th grade that she became obsessive with over-exercising and secretly eating less. By the time she was 21, Graves was 121 pounds of muscle with only 15% body fat. She put such high value on how she looked that she developed compulsive behaviors toward perfectionism. Jennifer Beery, a licensed nutritionist at the Florida Health Department, says the pressure of being perfect has created a rise in eating disorder among college women.
They may never feel that they're perfect and they keep going and going and going, whether it's extreme dieting or excessive exercising. So the constant pressure to be perfect is ever changing.
Any type of recovery is hard, but it makes it 1,000 times easier if you do not keep it to yourself.
To Graves, recovery means learning to love yourself the way others love you. Reporting in Orlando, Mona Howe, UCF Nightly News.
For more information on eating disorders and body image concerns, students are encouraged to contact CAPS at 407-823-2811 to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a specialist. UCF just had their spring game and the Knights are already training for the season to start next fall.
We'll tell you if the hits they're taking on the field are more dangerous than they think, coming up. Head injuries are becoming all too common in sports these days, especially football. Some believe there's a link between the two, while others are not convinced. We did some digging to find out whether or not football is a direct cause of concussions.
Manning to throw. Separation. Oh, big hit. Sanders gets walloped.
This is just one example of how violent the game of football can be. The NFL reported a 58% increase in concussions this season from the 2014 season. So can the statement be made that football is directly linked to head injury?
Ball's free.
Michael Dockery is the Florida Hospital Concussion Program Manager and says more research should be done before jumping to conclusions.
There's a lot left to be asked and questions to be answered as far as a direct causal link.
Dockery started the concussion program back in 2004, which treats and manages patients who have suffered a concussion. Mason Miner is a former high school football player who suffered multiple concussions as a quarterback. He says head injuries in football are bound to happen.
It's not anything that you can prevent from happening. It's not something that you can stop from happening.
Knowing the dangers, Mason says he would be a little hesitant letting his son play football.
I mean, I definitely would. I would let him if it's something he'd want to do, but it's not something I'm gonna force on him.
ESPN reports the American Athletic Conference identified 9 concussions last season, 4 more than the season before. Reporting from Orlando, Michael Kennedy, UCF Nightly News.
UCF officials decline to comment on camera, but state they currently follow NCAA concussion guidelines and have been for years.
The American Heart Association reveals that nearly 1 out of every 100 babies suffer from a heart defect each year in the U.S. Single ventricle heart is when a person is born with only one heart chamber. Reporter Vanessa Lewis tells us how one 3-year-old overcame the odds.
Less than a week after giving birth to her baby boy Gabriel, Jennifer Matos felt that something didn't seem right.
When he came home from the hospital, we were kind of unshaky about the way he was breathing, so we went to the pediatrician and they told us to go to the hospital.
Doctors diagnosed Gabriel with single ventricle heart at just 8 days old. Since then, Gabriel's undergone 3 open heart surgeries at Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital. Matos says the hardest part is knowing she can't be the one to heal her son.
I hate it. I feel like I just want to take it all away, and I can't, but you know, the nurses are here and they make him comfortable, but when he cries, my heart just crumbles.
Matos says she owes her life to one man, pediatric surgeon Dr. William DeCampley. DeCampley is responsible for saving Gabriel not once, but 3 times.
So what we've tried to do is to work with that single chamber and just rearrange the blood flow so that an adequate amount of blood is going through the lungs and a good amount of blood is going to the body.
DeCampley recommends that Gabriel see a lifelong cardiologist, but expects that he will live out a normal life from this point on. Matos hopes that her story will allow other families to follow their instincts and fight for their child.
If I didn't feel that something was wrong, we wouldn't have him here today.
As for Gabriel, he will spend the next 12 weeks recovering at home, in hopes of one day being strong enough to play baseball. Reporting in Orlando, Vanessa Lewis, UCF Nightly News.
As a result, Dr. DeCampley and UCF's engineering department are researching new ways to redirect blood flow to children dealing with this condition.
That's our time for right now. Thanks for joining us. We'd like to thank everyone who contributed to today's webcast.
We'll be back in the fall to bring you more of the latest UCF news. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Denise Jefferson.
And I'm Keith Hellebrand. Have a wonderful summer break.